All right, welcome everyone to our City Council meeting for Monday, June 10th, 2024. We can have a roll call, Madam Clerk, to establish quorum.
David Avanzino.
Here.
Steve Holofield.
Here.
Harry Meyer.
Here.
Autumn Slane. Here. Terry McClung.
Here.
And Susan Gruning is absent with notice.
Couldn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if I can get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. McClung made the motion, Mr. Holyfield seconded. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And a motion to approve the minutes for May 13th, 2024.
I move we approve the minutes for the May 13, 2004 meeting.
Second.
Mr. Holyfield made the motion, Mr. McClung seconded to approve the minutes. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's so moved. We got a couple of vacancies in some of our commissions. If you're interested, please come by the City Hall and put in an application or go online and put one in. We've got positions on the Planning Commission. We also have a position on the CAPC that needs to be filled. Under the hospital, tonight we're renewing Sandy Martin's position as hospital commissioner.
Motion to approve Sandy.
All right, got a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. McClung made the motion and Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under Parks, in your packet, you have a nomination form from Ruth Mitchell. Ruth's been here several years now and lives out on Pivot Rock Road. So if you're interested, give her a call and talk to her, and we'll bring her back up at the next meeting. Also have the vacancy on HDC, so if anybody's interested in Historic District Commission, again, contact the office or go on the website. And then on the cemetery, we've got a confirmation for Matthew Pancre to be on the Cemetery Commission. If I can get a motion.
I move we accept Matthew Pancras on seat 4 of the Cemetery Commission.
Second.
Mr. Holyfield made the motion to approve Mr. Pancre and Mr. Avanzino seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, at this time, we'll have 3 minutes for public comments. And, please limit your time to 3 minutes.
Brian Wright.
And please state your name and address.
My name is Brian Wright, 4119 East Van
And
Buren.
also, if you would, please speak into the microphone a little bit.
My name is Brian Wright, 4119 East Van Buren, Kettle Campground. I'm just going to read off of here so I don't take up all the 3 minutes. On January 8th, we attended the council meeting. The council voted to request that we allow Public Works to install a flow meter on our well to gauge usage to charge for our wastewater. Our attorney spoke with Simon at the meeting and followed up with a letter the following day requesting that he contact us to set up installation. We received no communication from anyone until May 15th when a Public Works employee came to mark the city water line that runs across the front of our campground. When he was finished, he came and spoke to us, and I inquired as to what he was doing, and he said he was told that we were being connected to the city water. And I replied that that was incorrect, that we had agreed on a meter on the well. And he said, well, they don't tell me nothing, and asked where the well was, and I told him, and he departed. About 2 weeks later, our attorney received a phone call from the city attorney stating that we had yelled and screamed at the city employee, which did not happen. Our conversation was nothing but amicable. Why would we treat him like that when we had already agreed to what the council was asking? We were told that if we did not comply with the city's new demands, we will be shut down. And I spoke to Simon today to try and get clarity on what was going on, and was told it is what it is and we'll have to connect to the city water. When I inquired about other properties with wells, I was told they'd have to connect also, and I don't see how that would go over very well with the rest of the town. I'm here to ask the council why the change when we have been agreeable to the council's original request the whole time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Gwen Bennett.
Hello, City Council. I'm Gwen Bennett, 11 Hillside Avenue. Before you tonight is a request to reopen Norris Street. Norris Street used to be the route from Benton Street up to the hospital. In the 1980s, the City Council decided that it wasn't being used as much. It wouldn't be a problem for the residents to close Norris Street. It was not vacated. I have some property, or John Mitchell had, which I now have, some property on Benton Street, and Benton Street, or on Norris Street, and Norris Street was platted to go down to Benton Street and not go across John's 4 lots. As it turned out, in the day, it went across those 4 lots. And then the gas company came along and said, oh, there's the street, let's lay our gas line. So both the street and the gas line were laid across those 4 lots without any easements, but it was done. So now I have a customer that wants to buy the property. She tried to find a way up Norris Street to get to her property, but there's utilities, there's a lot of dirt, it's hard to dig, there's a gas line, there's water, so she can't get up to the property from the bottom, and we're just asking that you reopen Norris Street from the top. Simon told me that it will not be maintained by the city, that's fine, but there's no other way to use this property. If it's not opened, it can't be used. On a second issue, I've been following very closely the bed and breakfast, the progress of the planning about the bed and breakfast issues. And I've been paying attention since the 1990s and all the issues concerning businesses and neighborhoods. In my time, I've been surrounded by bed and breakfasts and lodgings. And fortunately, recently, both the Crescent Cottage and a lodging across the street from me have sold to single-family. They're now single-family homes. I'm excited to have neighbors and voters in my neighborhood. I'm going to ask that when you do consider planning's recommendations, that you consider the attrition of the bed and breakfast by if they don't pay their CAPC taxes for 180 days or don't operate for 180 days, they're not renewable. This way they can turn into either single-family homes, which is possible, it's happening, and they can also be lodgings for people, workers here in town that need homes. Thank you.
Sharon Lawler.
Well, I hope I wouldn't ever have to be back here again, but here I am. So when you were trying to pass the ordinance on Spring Street for residential-only parking, we approached the council on several occasions with all kinds of emotion and everything else, and I don't have emotion anymore. My husband was rather disrespectful, and I apologize for that, but he passed away in November, and since then, I have learned some things that I didn't know then. So first of all, I sent you all a letter asking for some specific things. We're only asking for our 2 guest passes for Spring Street and then for the resident sticker for my son's vehicle, as he is a resident of the address, I'm sorry, Sharon Lawler. I live in Holiday Island, and I own the bed and breakfast at 263 Spring Street. Okay, so when we went through all of that, we were actually originally given a couple of guest parking passes. Then we were told to return them, and then we were told that it wasn't going to be enforced. But we really have tried to do what we could. But I want to point out that when we purchased the property, we were told that it was legal non-conforming, grandfathered in, and I have here a copy of your statute 1408-050 regarding non-conforming uses, the intent being for the properties to continue to operate as they had operated before that zoning ordinance was passed. The Bridgeford House has been on operating as a bed and breakfast since before 1986. One of the sentences in there is that that the landowners likewise may continue their previously legal use, which is made non-conforming by the amendment, which is really what's happening with the Spring Street ordinance as well. I also want to point out that under legal non-conforming B&B, if the B&B is sold, that it continues to be legal non-conforming. Then on regarding that ordinance, the zoning ordinance, you have an appendix. That's Appendix A. And in Appendix A, I would like to point out that the Bridgeford House is listed at 263 Spring Street, a B&B, is having 5 units and only being required 3 off-street parking places. So obviously, common sense would tell you that if you have 5 units and you're supposed to have 1 parking place per unit, but we were only required to have 3, that we were, as I was told when we purchased it, we were able to park 2 vehicles on Spring Street. I'm not asking for designated parking. I'm not asking for much of anything other than 2 guest passes that the guests that are staying on the street level units that they can use. A lot of our the people that come to the bed and breakfast are elderly, and it's extremely difficult for them to use the stairs. So having those, being able to park on the street for those, specifically those 2 rooms, makes it possible for us to do business. If we don't have that, then you'll be taking our business away from us, because you cannot park more than 3 vehicles in that alley. And in fact, that's very difficult. The alley is supposed to be 20 feet wide. In some places, it's only 10 as it is. So all I'm asking for is for you to consider restoring our 2 guest passes and allow my son to keep the resident sticker on his vehicle. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
That's it.
All right, that concludes public comments. If there's no one else signed up. All right, that brings us up to our first item of business, sewer and water updates.
Motion to discuss?
All right.
So, next meeting, Zane with McClellan will be here to talk about some of these loan options that I'm getting ready to talk to you guys about real quick. We've got a couple of routes that we could go, and we kind of want some council buy-in on this decision. Our first loan option is through the Arkansas Natural Resource Division. It's a NRD loan.
Before you get into that, son, what we're talking about is the how to finance what we're doing for the sewer plant.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So,
I should have said that. We've already filed the application for the ANRD loan, and we're waiting on them to respond with questions or feedback. The ANRD loan has a 20-year max term. The interest rate is going to be approximately 6.75% to 7%. This is the quickest process of either of the 2 loans, and this is a loan that we'd be able to use a construction manager on to do a CMAR project as we initially planned. Our second loan option is the USDA loan. It's got a 40-year term limit max. The interest rate is going to be approximately 2.75%. We will not be able to do a construction management, a CMAR project on this. So it'll be just pretty much a total project loan. It does have stricter federal guidelines. The one bonus to the USDA loan is we can include previously acquired debt, but the application process takes a little bit longer. So next week when Zane comes here, he'll talk about those two processes, and hopefully we'll get some numbers to be able to get with you guys on as far as what it'll do to our rates in the future. Now, as far as what we fixed sewer-wise over the last month, we did a sewer main repair at 3 Kings Highway, at 4 Mill Hollow, and on Amity, we replaced a broken clean out. So that's about it on the sewer side. So I'll stand for any questions.
I do have a question that was brought up in public comment regarding Kettle Campground. Because I do recall us all sitting around the table giving them permission to install the meter, not hook up to the water,
Right.
so that we could bill them properly for sewer. So has something changed that we're not aware of?
Well, so I sent my employees over there to look at the well house to figure out what size meter we needed to do and get the parts list together. They were told to leave the property, and they left. So from then on, I turned it over to Forrest to deal with it on the attorney side of things. Now, I do know the state plumbing inspector is coming into town tomorrow, and he plans on visiting Kettle Campground. According to the International Building Code, which we've adopted and the state of Arkansas has adopted, if public water supply is available at your location, you're kind of required to connect to it. So we're going to see what he says tomorrow, and then just go from there.
Have they been informed of this visit?
Yeah, I told them earlier on the phone. So when my employees were told to leave the property, I did call the Kettle Campground. I left them a voicemail. They haven't returned back to me till this morning. So, there's a little bit more than meets the eye on this whole situation.
Well, all I'm concerned about is that we agreed on something, and I want to make sure that, are we still going that path, or is it changed?
It depends on what the state says. The state says connect to water, they're going to have to connect to the water. If they don't, they're going to have to connect to the well, or they're going to have to meter the well, rather. So I'm just waiting on what the state says for us to do.
Can you chime in? City Attorney, can you chime in on this?
I've talked to the attorney for Kettle Campground and explained to him the situation, and that city workers were apparently run off. And I was telling them basically that the law and the code says that they have to connect to the city water system. That's what the code says. Now, the agreement was that we would put my understanding is the agreement was that we were going to put a meter on the well so that we can tax them for use of the sewage, which they are connected to the city. Obviously, we have city laws and code allowing us to connect based upon the number of units that they have there. It would probably be in their interest not to use that method. They would be better off, in my opinion, to put a meter on the well. Now, apparently, they're willing to do that now. They said they were going to do it earlier, but it did not happen. So we'll see what the, I don't know what the state guy says tomorrow.
It's a state plumbing inspector. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, whatever you think is appropriate along with the state inspector. If they're willing to put a meter on the well, which apparently was agreed to, then if that's agreeable to you. But if the state thinks it's a different route, that they have to join the water system, we will go that route.
Yep. I agree.
I'm just a little confused because it seems like we came out there with a different agenda than we sat at this table and had. And I think that's where the frustration probably came from their side, because that's where they wanted to stop the business or stop whatever was happening with Public Works. Because it seems like you were going out to attach them to the city water, when before they thought that.
Autumn, that's not true.
Okay.
So they were probably locating the line for that fiber optic project that's going through town right now. They knew what they were supposed to do at their property. I mean, my staff knew that they were supposed to go find the well and get a parts list together to put a meter on it. There was no confusion about that whatsoever.
After seeing the code, it looks like we were wrong. We can't give them the option. I mean, they wanted the meter on their sewer line, which I thought was kind of ridiculous since we don't meter sewer lines, we meter water lines. And in order for every subscriber of our water system to benefit from the volume, and that makes a difference. More water subscribers, more meters, more people are paying for the same amount of lines, basically. You know, their service line they've got to maintain. And so that's why the law is the way it is so that we can have enough subscribers to maintain our water system. And next year, when we have to reevaluate the whole thing and our rates, it'll pay off if we start connecting people that are, you know, like the sewer lines that's within 500 feet of a house. They should connect to that sewer line, and there's several in town that aren't. But that's the way that goes.
Mr. McClung?
I'm not going to express an opinion one way or the other till the state plumbing inspector shows up. And then I want us to be able to hear what those results are, you know, from an email from the mayor on it. Somebody needs to be there. It's a disinterested third party. So we get an even-handed report. Apparently, you know, the city doesn't agree with campground. The campground doesn't agree with the city with what has happened. So I think we need to have somebody. There is a disinterested third party for that meeting tomorrow, and then I want to report to the mayor, and then an email sent to all of us is what the results are. I mean, I thought it was a done deal a long time ago, and you know, here this comes back to the table that. They're a real surprise to me. So, you know, I'd like to see some resolution, but it's unfortunate that the city and the property owner are not getting along, and we need to, you know, get this remedied and move on.
I'm sorry, it's unfortunate that I didn't hear the last part. You said the city and the
city
department?
and the property owner are not getting along over this issue, and, you know, that there's point of difference, and we need to get it put to bed, get it resolved.
I don't think I want to call into question what our public works people said and witnessed by themselves. There was 2 or 3 guys out there.
Yeah, we just have maybe 5 that do all the field stuff, not a whole lot.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, Simon will and has been keeping me informed on this.
Jacob will be on site with them tomorrow too, so we'll get a report back.
Yeah, so we will keep the council and let the council know what's happening.
Thank you.
All right, brings us up to our next item. It's, I think, third reading in it for 2351 abandoned Confederate property.
Yep.
All right, get a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All right, Mr. Meyer?
I move to read ordinance number 2351 by title only for passage.
Get a motion to, in a second?
Was there a second? No? A second.
Second. Read ordinance 2351 by title only for its third reading. All right, now we need a roll call.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield.
Yes.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying, well, you already,
Ordinance
Voted.
number 2351, an ordinance to ban confetti on public property. Sorry.
all right, now I need a motion to approve ordinance.
Yes. I make a motion to approve ordinance 2351 on its third reading.
Second.
All right, any comments, discussion? All right. Got a motion by Mr. Myers and Mr. Holyfield, seconded to read the third and final reading.
Autumn
Title
Slane,
only.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Harry Meyer.
Yes.
All right, so moved. All right, that brings us up to new business. Discussion utilizing part of Main Street Fire Station for the CAPC. Get a motion to discuss.
I move we discuss.
Get a second.
Second?
All right, I think Mr. Maloney's here. This is his project. He and I have been discussing this for the last several months, on there at least.
Good evening. The CAPC is in need of additional space. We are currently here housed at the office of the auditorium, and we're out of room, plain and simple. So one of the things that has come up over the course of not just a few months, but over a while, is the fire station that's downtown, and the opportunity to go ahead and, number one, do something to sort of rehabilitate the front of the structure to make it a little more appealing than the two garage doors that we see right now. But also to create perhaps a little bit of an information center housed within. What this would do is create one section of the current existing facility that will house the old fire truck that we have. And then the other side would be a 2-hour firewall complete with window for viewing that will create some additional office and meeting space. A new bathroom installed, a new rake to the floor, obviously interior decor and lighting and air conditioning and so forth to really modernize the space, but also make it accessible to the general public as an information center. Not a visitor center. We really aren't in the business to do that, but to be able to have that door open as people come in, have questions that are downtown, and we can provide that service to provide the information. More importantly, it gives us the opportunity to have 2, potentially 3 spaces, a small meeting space, and then that has actually greater accessibility to the public overall. The CAPC would fund the entire project. There would be no money required from the city. What we would need to do to move forth is to go ahead and probably work with the mayor in terms of bidding contractor and finding out what those costs would be and what the interior would look like, and then also time frame, and then how we would go ahead and basically create a project from beginning to end.
Mr. McClung?
Couple things. One is the blessing from the fire department, first of all.
They do.
Okay. The second thing is, does it need to go to the HDC? You're changing the face of it. You're doing all that. We got to get all that approved first.
We had preliminary approval when we went through 4 or 5 years ago and looking at moving the city council chambers over there. We had already submitted to the HDC a facade elevation, and at that time they approved it. And so I'm not anticipating the facade elevation will stay the same for the front, and I don't anticipate any issues with that.
So, but does it have to go? I don't think
it does have to go. It does have to go through the HDC. Yes.
Yes. Okay. There's that, and then I guess the CAB, since the CAPC is going to pay for it out of pocket.
That's what Mr. Mulley was just saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
The advantage of having the truck there, number one, is actually 2 advantages. Number one, it maintains the current ISO reading for the city, so we're not sacrificing anything in terms of what happens with insurance rates. The other part of that, too, it does open up the opportunity for people to see what basically is a really grand old fire engine that the city has that really you don't get to see very often. and that would be put on display and open really for public view. So I think there's some opportunity here really that will help kind of spiff up the look of downtown a bit, if you will, but also create an opportunity to, again, be an info center and create something that really will kind of be an asset to the city.
Ms. Lane?
Is the fire truck being used, or is it a vintage?
I'm going to have to defer that question to people that really know. I know it runs and I know it can move in there, but whether it is an operational fire truck, that's not my purview.
Is it the old rural truck? Who drove it? You don't know which one it is?
Yeah, it's operational. Yeah, it is the old truck, though.
The old rural truck, the one that they use in parades.
Is it ever going to be fired up and taken to a
Oh,
fire?
absolutely. Well, not so much using for fire, but it is fired up and taken out and moved, yeah.
Okay.
It is, as far as I know, it is still used on rural fires because it's a crawler.
Yeah.
It gets out, and as far as I know, they still use it.
You said that there will be a wall separating the fire truck from the office space?
Yes.
So no fumes or anything can get over there?
They would have to have a 2-hour rated wall because it's a different occupancies.
Oh, okay, I heard
We've
that.
had
Okay.
James, our fire marshal, take a look at it, and he's worked with the chief to go ahead and look at the design of what would happen. So there would be a half wall that comes up, which is basically a regular structure, then a 2-hour window, actually glass fireproof, that will withhold the fire for 2 hours. The entire engine will be encased in that, capsule, if you will, and that will go ahead and create a safe space. So if it does get fired up, I don't know that it's going to be a particular pleasant situation for a few minutes, but when the doors are open and it's cleaned out, then I don't think we're going to worry about it too much.
Mr. Meyer?
Is the CAPC willing to do the repairs underneath this floor?
This floor,
This floor.
now we're talking about fire engines or the auditorium floor?
We're talking about the auditorium floor.
Well,
Okay,
that's a
we-
separate issue,
And
right?
the
We
water
moved along.
leaks.
We've moved to a different
We're going to be
category.
spending money here. Let's
Well,
remember, you've got this building to maintain too.
Mr. Meyer, that's a separate issue, but for your information, there's also looking at grants right now for repair of this floor.
Not to defer the question, but I'd rather keep the fire engine at top of mind awareness right now.
Ms. Lane?
Will there be people officing in that space, or will it be a situation where it's like a couple of people go over between certain hours, or what's going to be?
No, we'll have an individual there full-time, all the time. We'll probably have at least 2 people over there, time and a half, maybe even 3 people. It just depends on the needs of what we do. We are in a growth pattern right now. We need at least 1 additional person before the end of the year, perhaps, and probably another person after the first of the year. So we are growing.
How many people do you have in the office right now?
4.5.
Okay.
I say half, we have a part-time.
A part-timer? Yeah.
That's including you and Scott.
Yeah, Daniel Harris, Caitlin Jarrell, and Jana Lee Kaler.
So you're full-time, everybody's full-time except Scott.
Well, he actually is on an hourly basis, but he's considered part-time, even though he's, basically on the payroll full-time. But he's not on salary, he's on an hourly wage. Yes,
One
ma'am.
more question. The people that are going to be officing in the firehouse, what would their position be?
Well, I think we're going to have probably another information manager within the firehouse, and then we're going to go ahead and house Mr. Barden over there on a permanent basis. That's initially, we'll have those 2.
That's all I got.
Any other questions?
Oh, one more. Do we even have an estimate or a guesstimate of how much it would cost?
I've worked, Mayor and I've talked before, and we're probably looking at around $100,000.
Oh, okay.
And there may be more with the firewall.
Okay.
So, yeah. I think what we're like, go ahead, Mr. Holy.
So this motion tonight is really just to go ahead and start looking into it, right?
Yeah, that's it. We're kind of on an exploration mission at this point. That we have nothing basically on paper at this point other than an architectural sketch and drawing. But we need to go ahead and move forward with just the permission of the council to be able to pursue this endeavor. If, if we didn't do this, we'd have to be looking elsewhere.
Yeah, so this is step 1, then
Yeah.
we'll go to the next. it may not happen.
May fizzle
but
out.
I can't move forward until we get the city permission. So.
You know, I'll close with this. The opportunity to be downtown, having been up on the highway and officed here is really a very good thing. We have better interaction with the public. We have better interaction basically with our stakeholders. It also gives us the operational opportunities to work diligently on this building, upstairs or down. And it's a good fit for us to be in this area.
Mr. McClung?
Have you been meeting with stakeholders?
On a continual basis, yes. Yeah, all the time, every day.
Well, I mean, that hasn't always been.
It was a little more difficult up on the highway because of a little bit isolated, but on the same token, we are out and about all the time, and that's really one of the great
It's
things.
actually easier to get to on the highway.
Well, much more so. But what I can tell you, Terry, is that there's not really a day that goes by that we don't interact with our stakeholders at some level, whether they're coming in to pay taxes, or we're just basically trying to inform them of what is going on. And if you have the opportunity to be with us on June 2nd here in the auditorium, we got a whole bunch of stakeholders here.
Pardon me, say that again?
On June 2nd, here in the auditorium, we had about 250 of our residents and stakeholders here. It was an excellent opportunity to be one-to-one with them in a lot of different respects.
I was not here.
I know, but you missed a good one.
Yeah, I was out of town.
Would you tell us about your breakfast meetings with stakeholders?
Yes, every month we have what's called a 58-minute breakfast, and we pull together 5 to 6 stakeholders, not just stakeholders, but also people from the community and education, in health, in other positions within the community. We go up to Mud Street at 8 o'clock in the morning, and for 58 minutes, we talk about 2 things, whatever those 2 things that are necessary to talk about. And that way we are involving our stakeholders on a monthly basis, engaging with them, so they have a better understanding of what the CAPC is doing, and also what we need to be doing for them. And it's been very positive up to this point. So the 58-minute breakfast will probably involve all of you at some point, and we hope that when you get the invitation, you'll be able to make time in your schedule to do it. We do it basically on a Monday, and we do it starting promptly at 8, and we're done by 8:58.
Mr. Meyer?
Well, I'm really happy to hear that you approve of our abandoning of the place uptown or on the highway when there was 3 people working in that monster thing. And how many years of rent have we saved? I mean, it took us getting sued in order to get that done, but it's okay.
Anything else?
What's the council wish to do? We need a motion to,
I move we approve moving forward the CAPC to look into using the Main Street Fire Station as office space. Is that right?
I'll second that.
all right. So the motion is approval for the CAPC to investigate the use of the fire station into CAPC space on there. So any further discussion? Mr. McClung, second. All right, yes, sir.
I'd like to see the drawings
Well, we will when they're done.
before we absolutely finalize it.
That goes without saying, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Council.
All right, that brings us up to our next item of business is an ordinance authorizing creation of a permanent entertainment district at Pine Mountain Village. A motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All right. This ordinance is the creation of a permanent entertainment district at Pine Mountain Village, which, as most of y'all know, is a large area, and we've had several temporary entertainment districts up there for the last 2 or 3 years without any problems up through there. They are now creating and renovated most of the buildings. They have a new restaurant up in through there, and they're getting more and more events up there. And so what they would like to do is create a permanent entertainment district rather than coming down here 2 or 3 times a year for a temporary entertainment district. So that's what this ordinance is. There is not the same as the original permanent entertainment district that we were looking at in Eureka 4 or 5 years ago. That encompassed the downtown area. This is strictly for Pine Mountain Village, and only Pine Mountain Village. So we have the ordinance in front of you. I'll open it up for discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. Amazini.
2 things. One is, do we have any public input on this permanent entertainment district for the people who live in this area? Because 7 days a week in this time frame is going to be fairly annoying, is my guess. And number 2, are we setting ourselves up for other places wanting to come and make their property a permanent entertainment district? I see a domino thing happening here.
2 separate questions. The first question, I don't know, have you received any comments?
No, I'm in that area and I haven't received any.
I haven't
questions.
received any comments, and I'm not sure, I'm not sure about the noise anymore. We've never had any complaints when we've had the temporary entertainment district up there. Outside of, we have a lot of cars, we have car shows, but nothing ever to do with the entertainment district.
There is no formal notification sent out.
Okay,
It was just listed on the agenda.
That was my question,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
So
And my
Mr.
only concern is that I get the 2 to 3 times a year that we issue for various locations and businesses, but creating a permanent entertainment district, to me, 7 days a week in this time frame just doesn't seem like a very good idea, number 1. And number 2, are we setting ourselves up to have more people come to us wanting their properties to be a permanent entertainment district?
I can't answer the last question, but I would think that if they meet the requirements, which is a pretty stringent requirement, you're going to have a pretty, I'm not sure your motel would qualify as a permanent entertainment district. I think it has to be a larger area than just that. So there's not too many places around that would qualify, I don't think. I think Pine Mountain is pretty much of an exception. I'm not speaking for or against, I'm just stating that in my opinion. Again, I don't know. Mr. McClung?
2 things. One, I think, in response to David's first comment, is that I doubt most people know that it's even on the table at this point. So, they wouldn't have any comments until they know it, that it's before or before us. Secondly, my concern is that, it's not under one boundary. It's not enclosed, and I don't mean with a roof over it, but I mean a fence around it. I think that it's too open to do that. I don't mind. I think it's great when we do the as needed, for the entertainment district. It's not a difficult process, and so I think the status quo is fine. I just don't like it because it's just not enclosed. It's no boundaries.
Mr. Meyer?
Looking at the map, it looks like they're including their entire 40 acres. I don't understand, which goes all the way across Drennan. Now, there's people that live over there on Drennan, and there's people that live just the other side of it on East Mountain. No, I don't think it's a good idea. Now, their temporary district has a fence around where they do their temporary one. It's not totally enclosed, but at least there's a fence. And I believe that, I just have a hint, an inkling that if it's a permanent one, things are going to get lax. People are going to walk around with a beer and cross the street to get a burger. And they've been taken care of for almost the rest of the year with the temporary entertainment districts that we've already approved. So, Ms. Lang?
I love an entertainment district myself, but I do agree with the hours. I feel like if we were to put a permanent, maybe Saturday, or Friday and Saturday, maybe limit the hours. And if it is the whole property, I don't think that's smart either. I think it needs to kind of be mapped out just like we have with the temporary districts. But I think it's a great idea. It's a perfect location because it is really enclosed, so.
Mr. Holyfield?
Yeah, I agree. It's a perfect location. It's not like they're going to wander downtown with a beer. They
Yeah.
can't walk that far, I don't
Yeah.
think, especially if they're drinking. And I want to point out that most entertainment districts are not fenced off. New Orleans, you can walk off any alleyway with a beer and stuff. And even when we do this downtown, the whole area is not fenced off. But people are aware of the map and where it ends and where it starts. And that's, up to them to do that. If you put up a little orange fence, people can still step over it. I mean, if you're going to break the law, you're going to break the law. So.
Any other discussion? Is there any motion?
I have one more question. Are they wanting the entire 40 acres to be part of this?
At this point, all I know is what they have submitted right here. And we don't have a better legal description, so I can't really answer that. I'd be glad to, if somebody wants to table this, I can
Yeah,
find out
I'd like to
some more
make a motion
information.
to table this until we have a clearer description of exactly what they want.
Would you like to have I don't think the owner's here.
I know.
I can get the owner here if that's, might be better also. All right. So I got a motion to table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. There's a motion to table this by Mr. Alvanzino and second by Mr. Holyfield. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will table it until next time. All right. That brings us up to our next item of business is discussion of Spring Street parking ordinance. Get a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss?
Get a second?
Second?
All right. The city clerk and I have talked about this, and we have, and the city planner. Kyle, you might want to come up here. I think you're going to be involved with this discussion. And I'm not sure if we'll get the police involved or not yet, but we've ran into, and actually I think we will need the chief. Chief, you want to come up for a moment also? When we wrote this ordinance, or this ordinance was written, we ran into a couple of different items. And Madam Clerk, you want to, I don't have mine highlighted. You want to, one of them was how this is issued, the permits are issued, and we got a kind of a conflict because the police department is issuing them, I believe, and also enforcing the ordinance, which is impossible to do. And I think there was another item or two in there too, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's, the police department's not issuing the permits, and it says that it should, but they can't and enforce it. And then it also has, it states definitions, but it doesn't do anything with those definitions. And it says that a residence excludes all businesses, bed and breakfast, tourist lodging, tour homes. But there's legal non-conforming that are supposed to have off-street parking spaces. Wasn't that the other issue? Yeah.
Kyle, have you gotten into some other issues in through there?
Yeah, so I've come across a couple of administrative issues since we started rolling this out. So a couple of things. So the data that was collected when they looked at doing this was incorrect data that was analyzed in who qualifies for the parking permits. It also doesn't take ADA access into consideration when issuing the permits. In the ordinance, it requires the visitor parking passes to be dated, not permanent, and all of the visitor parking passes that have been issued have not been dated. The legal non-conforming properties have brought up an issue with not being compliant with the ordinance, but also the residents who live there. It does not allow for them to have permits until those properties are resolved. And then when the ordinance was passed, there was also a parking district enrollment explanation of options and requirements that kind of conflict with what is written in ordinance and what it is basically listed as the rules on who does qualify for those. So those are the issues that I've come across so far, just rolling it out. So.
Okay. You know, we knew when we were doing this, we were going to have problems. So this is,
right.
And we started enforcing this, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And that's when we started obviously running into some of these issues. So, Mr. McClung?
So it sounds like this is not ready. The ordinance is not ready.
It needs to be revised.
Yeah, it's,
Well, it sounds like that there's an awful lot of amendments that would have to be made to it. So I think it'd be a lot better to have it clean on the front end to start with. I mean, you're talking about more than half a dozen major changes. Right or wrong?
There's some changes that need to be made to this. Now, how the council wants to go about doing that is up to the council.
Well, I make a recommendation, make a motion that the city attorney rewrite with the recommendations that you have now and that Kyle has, and then we bring it before us and look at it to make a decision. It's just, I think it's a little premature.
We're just, all I'm doing and what we're doing is bringing up the issues before the council on the problems that we've had. So, I mean, what your suggestion is fine. Before we do that, Chief, do you have anything also I want to make sure we're hearing everything in through here. So,
yeah, just a couple of things I had, like I told him, you know, the ADA compliance is a little bit of a problem. We're not going to enforce anybody that's got a handicap sticker parked in a residential area. I'm just not going to write them that ticket myself. As far as enforcing the rest of it, I'm good with it, but like the clerk said, that we can't issue the permits and enforce them at the same time. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot on the comment. The only other comment I would make is, where's the scope of the residential parking that we're going to enforce? Because we have resident signs all the way from the church to the corner, and the church has events, and not all those people are local. So, I mean, just kind of limiting the scope of enforcement might be helpful on my part, but I can handle that in-house. If the ordinance exists, I can handle the enforcement of it. But you might want to make it a little more exact on how you want it enforced, would be my only comment.
Mr. Myers?
I didn't like this to begin with. I think that we can make it a lot simpler. There's just maybe a half a dozen or 6 or 7 people that wanted parking. These are residents. If we give them starting from the road that goes up to the church,
Crescent Drive,
if we give those people assigned parking places, put their address on it, only for this address, you find out all the rest of the parking spaces can be open. It's just the residents in that end. None of the other ones were complaining. I mean, somebody can go do a poll, but I honestly think that just a few assigned parking places will cure the whole problem.
Mr. Holyfield?
If we do that there, we'll have to do it all in the city. Because everybody will jump up and yell, I want my parking spot. I want mine for my wife, my 3 kids. I want it for 2 visitors. It will open up a can of worms that will never be able to close again. And I walked through that neighborhood on Sunday, and I looked at those cars. Some of them had, most of them did not have any stickers, a few did. And a friend of mine who lives in that neighborhood said, all the neighbors have just never bothered to go down to get their stickers. They're just like, we don't care, you know. So there's some people are really intense about making this happen, and a lot of the neighbors don't really care. So it's such a mess. I don't know what to do.
Well, we didn't have people coming to get a duplicate of this ordinance, so I don't know that that's going to be a problem.
Mr. McClung?
I think you're right. That it is a mess, and it's a mess that we allowed to be created. I think leaving it as it exists and has existed for years is fine. I think there's some people that don't like it, but there's always going to be people that don't like it. That means you're never going to make everybody happy. That's just, it's just the way it works. But it's been that way forever that I know of. I haven't been here a long time, but I've been here close to 50 years, which has been here all his life. And, there's problems, but there's always going to be problems with whatever you try to do. I think it's really fine to leave it like it is without any parking restrictions.
Do away with the ordinance.
That was what I wanted to ask. So you're suggesting doing away with the ordinance completely?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Meyer?
Because no one had complained in the past, I mean, if you go down that street on a Saturday afternoon, there's no parking places. If a couple people leave their parking place to go shopping and they come back and they can't park to carry their groceries in the house, what are they going to do? Walk 3 blocks? Go park in a no parking zone? I mean, yes, that is a particular area that has tight parking, and with a few parking places reserved for certain addresses, I think is just fine.
Mr. McClung?
I'd like to say in response to that is that's the way the parking has always been. People buy those homes on there. They know there's not any parking. If they don't have off-street parking and it doesn't exist, they know that when they're walking into it. So that's just the way it's always been.
No real estate agent tells the person, okay, you're not going to be able to park here because the tourists are going to park here before you.
Just for your reference, this started because of an overnight lodging facility that's been grandfathered in and not using their parking space because of the grandfather clause, supposedly. Now, what we can do is change the ordinance also under the grandfathering and allowing that. I think what I heard tonight was the Bridgeford House would like to have two parking. Their need, Kyle, how many parking spaces do they need? 6 or 5? 6?
With the residents, 6, yes.
Like 6 with the residents, yeah. So if they have 2 parking spots, that would be allowed by ordinance because it's under conditional use permit, and the council can change the grandfathering to make them, to allow them to have 2 off-street parking. Then they're required to have their 4 off-street parking, to have 4 off-street parking. That is the major issue through here, in my opinion. And then you also got multifamily house property too, which is another issue, but that is a property land use issue that happened over the divorce, and all of a sudden now they're lacking property through a divorce. Yeah. So I'm not sure how that one will resolve. Mr. Holyfield?
I totally agree with you. I think this all started when Bridgeford House changed owners a couple owners ago, not just the current owners, when they stopped asking or making their guests park behind. They just wanted to use the street parking. And even the residents, I mean, the lady who spoke, who owns Bridgeford House, her son is in his 20s, but he still parks up on the street. And it's like, well, we don't want people walking up the steps. It's like, well, come on, you have to give a little bit here. If your son is in his 20s, he can't walk up the steps. You know, they could park in the back, but their cars never parked in the back. When I walk through there on my walk, it's parked up front on the street, just like everybody else. So I think you're right. I think it's a lot of the problem is the Bridgeford House and the residents there. Or not
Mr.
residents.
Holyfield? I'm sorry. Mr. Avanzino. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at Mr. Avanzino.
Yeah, I just wanted
That's
to
great.
echo what Steve was just saying, and if I'm not mistaken, when she was up here speaking earlier, she was asking for 2 spots plus 1 for her son for on-street parking.
When we discussed it, she was willing for 2.
Yeah, well, tonight she asked for 3.
She wants 1 for herself, 1 for her son, and then 2 spots for.
Well, bottom line, it's 2, and then she's got the parking at the bottom, or in the back.
Yeah.
So,
Ms. Slane?
So how are we giving these things away when we're saying, okay, you get 2 spots? Is there lined out spots? How do you even guarantee that?
It's on-street parking. It's wherever it's available.
Then how
When
could
she
we-
when she came in my office, she wanted the spots in front of her house, and I said, no, we're not, that's a designated parking. I'm not going to suggest that, because then everybody in town will want the designated parking in front of their house.
Yeah, yeah.
So, no,
Yeah.
there's 2 off-street parking, it's wherever you find off-street parking.
I guess my issue is if we're handing out tags and we're saying, oh, you get an off-street parking, like what even guarantees I even get one? I'm kind of with Terry, like forget this whole ordinance.
2
because-
separate issues, from what I'm saying.
Okay, okay.
What I'm talking about is strictly the one piece of property. It has nothing to do with this Spring Street ordinance.
Okay, I got you. It's the grandfathered in part.
Right.
Okay.
That seems to be the problem to me. And, I think Mr. Holyfield walks that property. I drive it quite a bit. And there's parking, it goes all the way over to the grotto, almost to grotto, is on-street parking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of off-street parking, a lot of on-street parking, I should say, along Spring Street. Not in front of your house.
Yeah.
But if you lived in New York City, you're lucky to park 3 blocks away. Or Dallas, I don't even know if there's parking in Dallas, how that works.
I know the University of Texas would sell 500 parking tags for 300 spots. So it's like, they just, they didn't care.
So anyway, this is coming up before the city council to see how you would like to address this. There are issues, and we've discovered problems after we've done this, and we knew we would have. Now, where does the council want to go with it? One solution, Mr. McClung said, do away with it completely. And if that was the case, then I think we need to address the grandfather clause on there. The other issue is go ahead and rewrite this with the issues that we're talking about, the ADA, the issuance and enforcement. There's also, I'm not sure, is there a fine thing in here also? How much the fine is?
Yeah, it has a set range of the fine, and it also doesn't list, like, this resident gets this many parking spaces. Like, it doesn't even say, they give definitions, but then they don't use that definition in the ordinance.
Yeah. So, anyway, so it's whatever the council wants to do. Mr. McClung?
I go ahead and make a motion that we just drop it completely.
So your motion is to eliminate ordinance 2332.
We don't have an ordinance to that effect now, do we?
Yeah, we got ordinance 2332. That's what's causes the problem. We've been enforcing it, and people have been getting parking tickets.
Then yes, I make a motion that we eliminate ordinance number 2332.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Alvenzino?
I just have a question about the legalities of the grandfather clause. So can we take that away?
I think we can amend it. I'll have to go with the city attorney on that. I mean, we have to, they say they have 5. Kyle, come up, help me here. You're familiar with how that reads.
So they are allowed to have 3 off-street parking for the 5 units that they have.
Did you say off-street or on-street?
Off-street, yes.
So
where's the on-street issue coming from?
So they have 5 units, 3 off-street parking, and so they're asking for 2 parking permits for the other 2 guests' units, and then 1 for the resident.
So we're asking for a variance of 1 parking, wait a minute. So the grandfather would be 4 parking, they would have to have 4 off-street parking spaces under the grandfather, because they have to have 2, they have 5 plus 1.
If you were to take away their LNC status, they would be required to have 1 per rental unit plus 2 for the residents. So it would be 7 total off-street if you remove the LNC status.
I think you're losing everybody. I think the confusion's.
Lost me, yeah. We still, I'm sorry. Mr. Alvenzino, was that your question?
Yeah,
I lost it here too.
I just want to make sure that if we get rid of this ordinance, that is there an alternative for the grandfather clause, is my question.
I think there is. I think we have talked about that, and I think the city attorney.
Basically, if you deal with the issue of the Bridgeford House, if we can work that out, there are 3 other multi-unit things. And if you just deal with the multi-unit things, I think it'll clean up real well.
Yep.
So we start with the Bridgeford House or any place you want to start. But you work them all, you just work it out for each one of those and then see where we stand and we can go forward.
Mr. Attorney, would the one thing would be taking the Bridgeford House off of the non-conforming when we change the ordinance and require them to have 4 off-street parking spaces and allowing them to have 2 on-street parking by ordinance?
Well, that's something that can be done.
Can that be done?
Grandfather is a misnomer. There's no such thing. You make laws, you change laws. If we change this one,
Legal non-conforming.
Yeah, that would be acceptable. So if we get them to conform with something that's acceptable, then we just keep going.
And that can be done by ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Meyer?
I went up behind the Bridgeford House and the apartments past it, and Bridgeford House owns a lot of lots back there that can be used for parking. I mean, it needs to be improved, but yes, and there's lots of parking behind that, on King Street, behind the apartment building. I think there's 7 units there.
There are. And if you want that address, we looked into that with the fire marshal, fire chief, about getting the fire truck in through there. And that street, as you well know, really doesn't meet street standards. And those parking spots actually extend out into the street. And I'm not sure, Kyle, help me, were you privileged to that conversation with the fire marshal and fire chief?
Yes, yeah.
And what did they say?
So the way it sits now, he barely has clearance. He measured, it's just over 10 foot, where it's platted at 20 foot.
Mr. McClung?
I can't say how things are done now, but that was never considered a street when I was on the fire department. That's always been pretty much just an alleyway. It's a platted street, of course. We know that. But it's never been an active street. It's been, people go back there and park, but there was never the intention. We never parked a fire truck back there on any fire we had on Spring Street. Never. I don't know
think we only just had a recent fire back there, and I don't think the fire truck was back there then either.
I doubt it. I mean,
not sure.
there's no fire hydrants back there. What's he gonna hook to?
All right, anyway. Mr.
Now, when they access it from Spring Street, the fire
Oh,
department?
yeah.
There's only a couple of houses at the very front of Kings Highway there that they'd have to have access from there, but the rest of that's access to Spring Street.
That's right, all access to Spring Street. It was never even considered a street. It's always been considered an alley, even though it was, at one time, was a main street.
All right, so what, we haven't any further discussion on eliminating ordinance 2332. I got a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. McClung and Mr. Holyfield, second, I believe. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so moved.
So we'll have to draft another ordinance.
That's the current procedure, take an ordinance to eliminate this ordinance?
We went through this with the,
Yeah, I think you do need an ordinance
Yeah.
to revoke this ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this will come back to the council table again. All right. All right. That brings us up to our next item is discussion intersection of Spring and Main. I get a motion to discuss.
Motion to discuss?
Second?
All right. Mr. Amazino.
Yeah, so other council members, I've had several phone calls from people, tourists and residents alike, that are having issues with the intersection right at Spring and Main. We've all driven it. We all know exactly what happens. There's probably capacity for, I'd say, 10 to 20 accidents there a day, if not more. When you're coming up on Main, you have to pull way past the brick retaining wall to see what's coming to your right. You can't see the stop sign. You can't see the signs coming on Spring that say stop or yield or no left turn or right turn, whatever it may be. See, I don't even pay attention to them because I can't see them. So I did speak with Jimmy Morris with RDOT. He said, because that intersection is controlled by RDOT, they're willing to come in because they see the same issues that a lot of people do, come in and create a simple white stripe across the intersection of Spring and Main that would go across just above the retaining wall that would let people know that they should be warned of something in this intersection, whether it's to yield, stop, no left turn, no right turn, whatever. And all it needs is city council approval. And they come in and do it.
Could you repeat that again, please, David, for me? I'm sorry, I didn't quite
I'm
understand.
surprised they need city council approval, but what he's saying is basically the highway department will come in if the city council
Yes.
agrees to put some white stripes.
It's like like you would see a yellow caution stripe on a street or a school zone or whatever. It's just a white stripe, that heat stuff that they use on asphalt to let people know, to be aware that there is something here, whether it's a stop, yield, or no turn.
And where does it go?
Where does what go?
Where's the stripe going to be?
It would go from
Main.
Main Street all the way to Spring Street.
At where the little corner is?
Yes.
Light
Like
or
Mud Street,
where the post
from
is?
in front of Mud Street across to.
Correct.
Mr. McClung?
I make a motion, we would let them add the stripe.
Second.
It's their pay, yeah, I'll second.
Anything would help.
Who did you speak with?
I spoke with Jimmy Morris.
I'm not familiar with Jimmy, okay.
Yeah, he said it simply needed approval from council.
All right. All right, we got a motion from Mr. McClung, and you seconded it. Do I hear a second, Mr. Meyer? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I will talk to the highway department in the morning and get that started. And I'm assuming they will pay for that.
Excuse me?
I'm assuming they will pay for that.
Yeah, they do all the work. And I asked him, I said, does this include like stop, yield, all these kind of letters? He said, no, it's just the stripe to let people know that something's coming up.
Just as a side note, Mr. Mayor, that you will recall, there used to be a block, a metal block that was sat there right off that intersection out in the middle that kind of separate the two streets. I think it's at the museum now. I think it got pulled up. I think that's where it is.
Yeah.
But it was here for
Yeah, it was here forever.
forever. Yeah, you remember it.
I remember it.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I got a ticket one day for accidentally running over it.
No.
That's fact.
How do you accidentally run
That
over
was
a
one of
metal
my
wall?
lesser tickets.
Accidentally. Okay. All right, moving on. All right, get a motion to discuss the opening of North Street.
I move to discuss.
Second.
All right, motion and discussion. Simon, are you still here? All right. Does everybody know where we're talking about on this piece of property? It's going up Benton Street, right there at the last house on the right.
That's right. We have a gate there that we close during snow weather, right where that road breaks off. But yeah, it just goes into the woods. So I spoke to Gwen about it quite a bit, and I have no objection to reopening it up. But our viewpoint is that if it's going to service just private property, but just that single property by itself, that it'd be up to the owner to maintain it and to update that road. We just don't have the resources to improve that street back into a public road again.
Mr. McClung?
Who owns, does Gwen have just one side of that street? Does she have both sides?
I think it's just one side, if I'm not mistaken.
City, I think, owns the other side.
Yeah, I think there's two lots,
Yeah.
but they're on one side of the road.
Is there any way to deed her that street? So then it'll be just up to her to make it a drive. Can we do something like that?
City owns the other side of the street.
Well, then, I mean, I know it seems like the city has to put everything out for bid, but if, let's see. You don't want to close it off then because we still have those lots.
Let her open it back up.
So, the city needs access to those lots too. So,
Of course.
I've kind of researched this. The city's not obligated to maintain that street. We can open it. We just don't have to pave it or put gravel on it or curbs or anything else. In other words, we can open it up and you're allowed to drive in there at your own risk, but the city's
like
not
so many
responsible
others.
for it.
Okay.
She doesn't have to go too far up it anyway.
Yeah,
'cause that
no,
lot's
yeah,
right
I
there.
understand. Understand.
All right, Mr. McClung?
I also heard that there are sewer lines on the ground down there.
I don't know about that. That'd be a Jacob question.
There's a water line.
There's a water line. There's some gas lines that I'm aware of, but
I'm talking about above ground.
I don't know about that.
I don't,
Ours are below ground, so. over there.
Gwen, evidently you,
I think you might be referring to that property that Stuart Sawyer owns at the end of Norris Street up by the hospital.
okay.
And I really don't know if they're above ground or not. That'd really be a Jacob question.
All right. So I guess what I need is a motion for the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to reopen the lower portion of
Upper portion.
Parent Street or North. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we have an ordinance prepared to reopen that portion of the street that is requested.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion, Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so moved. All right, our next item is a resolution setting a public hearing for consideration of vacating a section of Peerless Street.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay. In your packet, you'll have your discussion of here and letters from the Public Works and Parks and Recs to, and a map noting the location of this. Any further discussion? Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we assign this resolution a number and read it for passage. Approve it for reading, or whatever it is we do.
Okay, read for passage. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion, Mr. Myers seconded to assign this number and read it for passage. Any further discussion? Roll call.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Steve Holofield.
Yes.
Assigning resolution number 860, a resolution to set a public hearing date for consideration of vacating a section of Peerless Street, whereas the property owner of Lot 1 and Block 45 of the Freeman Edition has submitted a petition to the City of Eureka Springs to vacate an unused section of Peerless Street running east and west, and whereas the signed petition was submitted to the council in regular session on June 10, 2024, along with a copy of the plat showing streets, alleys, and adjoining lots. And whereas Arkansas Code 14-301-302C provides that the city council shall by resolution fix a day for the hearing of the petition filed to vacate a street or alley. And whereas the law further directs the city clerk to give notice of the meeting by publication once per week for 2 consecutive weeks in some newspaper published in Carroll County, Arkansas, having general circulation in the city. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that the petition to vacate the above described street is set for hearing on July 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the auditorium of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and the city clerk shall give notice of this meeting by publication as set forth by Arkansas Code 14-301-302C.
Madam Clerk, what was that number again?
Oh, sorry, 860.
860. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, get a motion to discuss item number 7, resolution for a public hearing to vacate an alley between lots 1 and 4.
Motion to discuss.
Mr. McClung made the motion, and I have a second.
Second.
And Mr. Avanzino seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we assign this resolution number and read it for passage.
Get a second?
Second.
Mr. McClung made a motion, and Mr. Avanzino seconded to assign this resolution a number that would set a public hearing for consideration of vacating a section of unnamed alley. No further discussion?
Steve
All in
Holofield.
favor? I'm sorry.
You're fine. Steve Holofield,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Autumn Slane,
Yes.
Harry Meyer.
Yes.
Assigning resolution number 861, a resolution to set a public hearing date for consideration of vacating a section of an unnamed alley, whereas the property owner of lots 1 through 7 and block 70 of the Clayton Survey has submitted a petition to the City of Eureka Springs to vacate an unused section, an unnamed alley running east and west. And whereas the signed petition was submitted to the council in regular session on June 10th, 2024, along with a copy of the plat showing the streets, alleys, and adjoining lots. And whereas Arkansas Code 14-301-302C provides that the City Council shall by resolution fix a day for the hearing of the petition filed to vacate a street or alley. And whereas the law further directs the city clerk to give notice of the meeting by publication once per week for 2 consecutive weeks in some newspaper published in Carroll County, Arkansas, and having general circulation in the city. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that the petition to vacate the above street is set for hearing on July 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the auditorium of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and the city clerk shall give notice of this meeting by publication as set forth by Arkansas Code ACA 14-301-302C.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our business for this evening. We'll now go in with council comments, or agenda setting, rather. We got a couple of items I'll get on the agenda that we talked about tonight, and be on the agenda next time. All right, city council comments. Mr. Holyfield, we'll start on your side.
CAPC next meeting is in the month, June 26th. I volunteered at the Blues Festival, part of it 2 weekends ago. So it seems like a lot of people in town. I got to experience the entertainment district, and people were, can I take my beer out here? And I was like, yeah, as long as you stay inside this map area. And people were just thrilled. It's like, I'm not sure why that's such a thrill, but they seem to find that such a thrill. And it seemed like last weekend there seemed to be a lot of people in town for Pride. The parade was really cool. I'm glad everybody had a good time, and I'm glad the weather's kind of straight out.
Mr. Omazina.
Yes, I want to thank CAPC and the staff for coming out with the new Eureka Scene video. It was very cool. There's portions of it that will be used for commercials and air spots, and others that will just be used for really not any air spots, but for individual businesses or a band or whatever. So it was a really cool video. If you weren't here June 2nd, it was nice to watch it. It was a lot of fun. Also want to thank Public Works for all their cleanup during our last 2 days of back-to-back storms. That was a nightmare. So thanks for getting all the trees and everything out of the roads. And my final comment is wishing Suzanne well on her healing process.
Ms. Lane?
No comment.
Mr. Myers?
Just looking forward to pretty weather after the rain stops, whenever it will.
It stopped.
Mr. McClung?
Blues Festival, I heard nothing but good things about it. I think it's building back up. I went to the show at the auditorium right here Friday night for Sunday Bandwidth, a great show. Not really, the crowd was small, which was unfortunate because it was definitely worth the ticket, and it was a lot of fun. But you got to start somewhere, and I think it's got real potential. I hope to see it to grow, continue. But I heard the venues around town, Autumn's Place and others, that they had great music and were a lot of fun. So glad to hear it. That was one of my favorite times back in the day.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard some great reports back on Blues Fest. I'm glad to see it's picked back up. And like was mentioned, a lot of people in town. And, a lot of people were in town last week for our Pride Festival, our first Pride weekend that we've had. The town was packed in through here. I do want to make a note, and I'm sure Ms. Lane might find this interesting. Since the transit had launched the on-demand service for people in service in May of this year, we've had 95 riders that have taken part of on-demand transportation during this initial month of service. Primarily, though, the readership had made up the tourist traffic, along with an increasing number of locals who do find that this service is meeting their needs. So I really thank Transit for this service expansion, as well as support from the City Council and the public for the on-demand service. I think this is a good method to help supplement our transportation in Eureka. Also, want to make note to the general public and city council members, the new city Eureka Springs website's changed to eurekaspringsar.gov instead of the city of eurekasprings.us. So it's changed from Eureka Springs AR.gov instead of the city of eurekasprings.us. So if you try the old website, it won't work. So this is a new website, and it's really, Matt, the clerk, and other people have really done a lot of good updating on this website. I'm real pleased and real excited to see this. It's done a good job. So, not a lot of activities coming up in Eureka, but we do have, another parade coming up. This time it's the Crossfire Parade, June 13th at 3 p.m. And then we also have Music in the Park, June 15th from 6 to 8. Jolly Mullinax with Jacob Tover and Cassie Latshire. And then the Ozark Rally Rumble, June 20th through the 23rd at Pine Mountain Village. And then this is Opera in the Ozarks. The 2024 season starts June 21st with La Traviata. Thank you. If you've never been to an opera in the Ozarks is an incredible facility. Well, not the facility yet, they will be, but performances. It's world class, and people out there, the singers come from all over the world out there, and they're only there for 6 weeks, and it's something Eureka should be real proud of. And with the new facility being built, it's going to be what I consider the Crystal Bridges of the opera for Eureka Springs. It's going to be an incredible place out there with operas and music, and it's going to become expanding from 6 weeks to more like 9 months. Won't have opera all the time, but it'll be a lot of other aspects of the music industry.
Broadway shows, just all
So,
of it.
yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Pretty
what's
cool.
gonna happen.
Very bright, the future for
So,
it.
if you get a chance, go out and support them. They've got some great shows coming in. I think there we go. Things, Beauty and the Beast, L'Enfant. They have several different shows going into there. The Crucibles come on. So, and they also do some here at the. I think they do a little one at the auditorium too, if I'm not mistaken. So if you get a chance, you don't want to drive out there, go to the one here at the auditorium. So anyway, other than that, that's all I have, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. If anybody opposed, you